Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Our opening hymn this morning is "This Is My Song" from number 159, Singing the Living Tradition. Please sit back and enjoy the hymn.
This is my song, O God of all the nations, a song of peace for lands afar and wide. This is my home, the country where my heart is. Here are my hopes, my dreams, my holy shrine. But other hearts in other lands are beating, with hopes and dreams as true and high as mine. My country's skies are bluer than the oceans, and sunlight beams on clover leaf and vine. But other lands have starlight too, and clover, and skies are everywhere as blue as mine. Oh, hear my song, now God of all the nations, a song of peace for their land and for mine.
So things are a little bit different this morning. We usually project slides up on the wall, but the projector's not working this morning, so we're all going to watch it on the screen here. So if you'd like to see the screen, you could just move over to your right, and so you could see what we are doing here visually. To the, what? Your left. Exactly. All right, so good morning. Welcome to the live in-person and live Zoom worship of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Riverside. Thank you for joining us here in person, and thank you for joining us remotely by Zoom, where we will continue live streaming and posting these services on our YouTube channel for our virtual attendees. I'm Grace Preuss, a member of the worship committee, and I will be your worship associate today. Other members of the worship committee you will hear from include Alec Peck, who you just saw on the screen singing our hymns. We welcome you to join us this morning with an open mind and an open heart, and with muted electronic devices, please. Welcome to this morning, this day, and this opportunity to be together, which is a time to join the meeting, comfort, and sometimes challenges. This Unitarian Universalist congregation is a place where we come to learn more about being human. We're not here because we figured out life's questions or because we think we've got it right. We come here to learn more about being in relationship together, how to listen, how to forgive, how to be vulnerable, and how to create trust and compassion in one another. Although our doors are open, the pandemic is not over. So while we are here, we request that you please socially distance. We can speak in normal tones, but singing or chanting creates an increased risk of airborne exposure. So we ask you to refrain for the time being. We invite those of you in the sanctuary to sit back and enjoy listening to the music. For those of you at home, sing your hearts out. And now I invite you to sit back and take a slow, deep breath as we move into the worship hour. For our call to worship, you are welcome to read with me the mission statement of our church. Our mission is to foster a diverse religious community that celebrates life, affirms the individual, encourages spiritual growth and open thought, and works to advance social justice and environmental sustainability. Today, we're privileged to have Reverend Monrow Mabon, a friend of UUCR. Monroe A. Mabon was raised in Compton, California. After his high school graduation, he enlisted in the US Army and 3 years later received an honorable discharge as a disabled combat veteran. Nevertheless, he went on to have careers as a bus driver, police officer, state attorney, and church pastor. His educational background includes degrees in education, political science, a master's in public administration, fellowship program at USC, and graduate of the FBI National Academy in Quantico, Virginia. He earned a Juris Doctor degree from Glendale University College of Law. Although Monroe enjoys a comfortable life from city, state, and federal retirements, he serves on the boards of multiple philanthropic organizations. He is also a Riverside City Commissioner, a member of the Riverside 2019 to 2020 Charter Review Committee, and associate pastor at Allen Chapel Church, Riverside. Our sermon today is entitled Conciliation versus Confrontation. In times of conflict, the resolution is more often than not influenced by the approach, demeanor, and attitude of each party. Matthew 18, verse 15 counsels, "If your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault between you and him alone. If he listens to you, you have gained your brother." How can we apply this principle to a personal, social, and global context? Now we have two lightings of sacred flames. The first is the occupied Indigenous Peoples Remembrance Candle. The second is the lighting of our own chalice, the symbol of our faith. We walk upon the traditional territories of diverse and sovereign peoples, the original people of this land, who continue to cry out for justice and self-determination. This spot we occupy was first the sacred space of several groups of Indigenous peoples, including the Cahuilla, the Cupeño, and the Serrano. We, the Universalist Unitarian Church of Riverside, light this sacred flame as the stewards of this sacred and holy place. We are blessed with a space and opportunity to strive to live out our common principles, to bring justice, equity, and compassion into our daily lives, to resist all that threatens the earth and her people, and to be part of a world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Let these thoughts carry us forth as we journey and worship together. Today's reading of the chalice lighting is A Spark of Hope by Melanie Davis. If ever there were a time for a candle in the darkness, this would be it. Using a spark of hope, kindle the flame of love, ignite the light of peace, and feed the flame of justice. Thank you, Bill. Now we move on to greeting our guests. We have a tradition at UUCR to welcome those who are visitors or perhaps returning after some time away. We know it can be uncomfortable to stand up and speak in front of others. And so I will now ask for a volunteer from someone who has been here a while to tell us your name and how you found out about the church. We ask you to step close to the mic here in the front and speak directly and clearly into it so that everyone can hear. Do we have a volunteer? Bill?
I guess mine is a fairly Unitarian how I got here story. I had a religious quarrel going on in my old home, so I stayed away from churches for a while. I'm a little bit more on the pantheistic side of the street, quite a bit more. And there'd been a drum circle here. And I went and enjoyed myself, and then it suddenly struck me that these people, this is not necessarily a surrounding for a pagan, you know, the stuff that we see here. But yet the doors were open and they were trusting and friendly. And it struck me that the world is filled with people who are trying to clone you before they can love you and before they can trust you. Here are people that did not necessarily need that. They simply worked under the assurance that I was a basically decent human and to help lock the joint up when it was time to go. People who are not trying to clone you are people to keep track of. And as spiritual link to the infinite, you could do far, far, far worse. And I've been here for many years now. My name is Bill Casey. First, you told me to keep it all short. First, you jump on me for that. Then you get me with this. Fortunately, my nourishment and strength comes from multiple sources as well.
Thank you, Bill. And that's how it's done. If you are new here, a visitor, or an old friend, please raise your hand to stand and come up to the mic in front of the pulpit. Oh, good. We have a couple of new people here today. Welcome.
Good morning. My name is JP, stands for John Paul. I come here on Wednesdays for a Narcotics Anonymous meeting and have wanted to grow more spiritually in my recovery. And I reside here in downtown Riverside at a sober living called Saving Grace. And yeah, and thank you for having this time to worship. Appreciate it.
Welcome, Bill Paul. Morning.
Good morning. My name is Jamin Osborne, born and raised in Riverside. Always been in the building a few times, but never to a service. So this is my wife, Tila. And we're newly married. We have a baby that is 6 months old, almost 7. And Tila is not from Riverside and wants to have community, and I do also, and with people that are open, like-minded, tolerant, future thinking, and wanting to have influence in their community through their behavior.
Is there anyone else in the audience? Adam, is there anyone on Zoom who'd like to introduce themselves? Okay. All right. So for any other new guests, please join us for socializing and coffee hour after the service. We'd love to chat with you out in the parish hall, where you can find our visitors book. Please leave your name before you leave so that we know you are here, and leave your contact information if you'd like to know about upcoming events. For those online, The best way to get added to the mailing list is to email the church office at admin@uuchurchofriverside.org. Now there are a few announcements that we'd like to share. During the service, we will mention several websites, email addresses, and phone numbers. At the end of the service, we will leave up a slide with all of this information, and it is also available on our website. So here is our, I think this is a biweekly announcement for COVID. According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, as of March 22nd, a subvariant of Omicron called BA.2 now accounts for nearly 35% of COVID-19 cases in the US. While BA.2 is not yet causing alarm, the CDC cautions against complacency. Vaccines are widely available in this country, and we must all make a conscientious effort to protect our loved ones, our community, and ourselves. You can make an appointment at vaccine.ca.gov, or for more information and more options of vaccine locations, please go to covid19.ca.gov. Remember, we are all in this together. Okay. So now we have some church announcements. The first Sunday luncheon. Don't forget to join us next week after the service for the first Sunday luncheon. Next week's theme is a baked potato bar. Camp Connect workshop. UU principles, how do they go beyond an ideal? Camp de Benneville Pines invites you to a virtual experience called Camp Connect workshop. UU principles, how do they go beyond an ideal? This series of workshops concludes today at 5 p.m. They have been focusing on 2 UU principles each week, and the workshop will be presented via Zoom and facilitated by our camp dean and professional facilitator, Amy Brunel. Today, UUCR will be streaming the 4th installation of the series at the church annex at 5 p.m. if you wish to share the experience with fellow congregational attendees. For those of you who may not be familiar with the principles, they're up here on the wall. This is what our beliefs are based on. The 2022-2023 membership pledge drive. UUCR kicked off the 2022-23 membership pledge drive yesterday with a wine and cheese event. Thanks to all of you who coordinated and supported this gathering. And thank you to all of our members who continue to support and contribute to keeping our doors open to one another and the community during these challenging times. Please submit your pledge forms to Dinah, or the club office so that we can continue to serve as a spiritual and social sanctuary here in the heart of Riverside. Each pledge we receive will be entered into a raffle for the famous UUCR gift basket. The winner will be announced next week at the first Sunday luncheon on April 3rd. Our hymn now is Who is My Neighbor by Amanda Eudice Kessler. If you are in the sanctuary, I invite you to sit back, close your eyes, and listen.
Who is my neighbor? Every soul who lives upon the earth. I have been called to treat each one with dignity and worth, working for justice, seeking peace, and cultivating care, offering hope to those whose lives are laden with despair. When I can ease another's pain, I know I'll do my part. When I can bring another joy, I'll open up my heart. When I have more than someone else, I'll I'll share the things I can. When I am tempted to be cruel, I'll strive to understand. Who is my neighbor? Earth itself and all the beings there. Flora and fauna, fish and fowl, the trees that graze the air. River and prairie, sea and sky, I honor and respect. These are my neighbors, these I vow to cherish and protect. Oh, may we build a world where all have everything they need. May we be free from hate and fear, from violence and from greed. May our lives be tributes to compassion, love, and trust, till we are kin to all the world and all are kin to us.
Sharing our stewardship. This portion of our service is to support our beloved historical church. This can be accomplished in several ways. In addition to the weekly collection, you may send your checks to the church address, which is shown here. You may also contribute by PayPal using the QR code, which is on the church website and also in the newsletter. Stater Brothers Market gives our church a rebate on Stater grocery cards, which we will have in church each Sunday. You will get the full value, and the church also receives a percentage. Today is 50-50 Sunday, which is held on the fourth Sunday of the month. If you wish to donate to the 50-50, half of each designated donation goes to the Foster Army Organization, and half goes to the general fund. Today's organization is the Foster Army Organization. This is in addition to your pledge to the church. Please write 50-50 on the memo line of your check or on the envelope that you find in your pews. So now we will welcome the Foster Army Animal Rescue Organization. The speaker will be Leslie Holtz-Richter from Foster Army, and she'll tell us a little bit more about this nonprofit group and its mission.
Good morning, and thank you for inviting Foster Army Animal Rescue into your place of worship. My name is Leslie, and I'm on the board of directors with Foster Army Animal Rescue. With me, I have Hamich. He is one of the animals that we have rescued. Also with me is Kimberly Powell. She's in the back there. She's a co-founder of the organization and on the board as well, and also our pet care manager. So this organization started in 2016, and our goal is to help the city of Riverside reduce the number of animals that are euthanized. So we work directly with the Department of Animal Services here in Riverside in taking in the animals off the treatable list. These are the animals that are either too young to survive on their own, have some kind of health or disability, or need some kind of surgery. These are the ones that are most vulnerable at being euthanized. We don't have a shelter, so we rely on foster volunteers to take these animals into their home, care for them, and then once the animal is old enough or well enough, they get placed into homes. So we have a little thrift store on Central Avenue for you old Riversiders. It was the old Marcy Branch Library that's next door to the big red roof Wiener Schnitzel. So we've been there for about 4 years. We have a thrift store that helps us raise funds so that we can care for animals like these. So our foster volunteers don't pay for anything at all. They have all the food they need, toys, cat litter, whatever it is they need. We pay for all the surgeries and then the microchipping and all of that. This little guy, Hamish, he was actually found by a Good Samaritan walking along the streets of Riverside with, unfortunately, his eyes were detached. So this Good Samaritan picked him up, took him to the Department of Animal Services. His eyes needed to be removed. The vet believed he sustained some kind of head blow to the head that kind of really forced his eyes out. So he got his eyes removed. He is blind right now, but he's just a joyful little guy. So these are the kinds of animals that we take in. Hamish is living in a foster home right now and comes to the store on Saturdays, hoping to find his forever home. So before I close, I want to tell you about our wonderful volunteer program. And let me see if I can find my notes. The pledge that our volunteers make before they start volunteering with us. So I'm going to read the pledge. As a member of Foster Army Animal Rescue, I pledge to treat people with respect and kindness, regardless of ethnicity, sex, religious creed, sexual orientation, gender identity, age, nation of origin, or disabilities. In other words, we want everyone to feel welcome and safe within Foster Army. We have another no tolerance for not being kind. So throughout the store, in the back rooms, we have signs posted about being kind. And so it is a wonderful, wonderful organization. And we both, all three of us today, appreciate you letting us talk about ourselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leslie and Kimberly, for coming out today and sharing your mission with us. Thank you. Please donate as the Spirit moves you by whatever method works best for you. Thank you for your generosity, and to those who give of their time and their talent, thank you for your generous care and attention. Will our ushers now please come forward to receive the collection? Our next hymn is From You I Receive. Please sit back and enjoy quietly.
From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, from this we
Our meditation today is It is Possible to Live in Peace, a shared reading by Mohandas K. Gandhi. If you can see the screen, we invite you to follow along and participate by reading the italicized lines. If someone with courage and vision can rise to lead in nonviolent action, the winter of despair can, in the twinkling of an eye, be turned into the summer of hope. Nonviolence is not a garment to put on and off at will. Its seat is in the heart, and it must be an inseparable part of our being. Nonviolence, which is a quality of the heart, cannot come by an appeal to the brain. It is a plant of slow growth, growing imperceptibly but surely. If a single person achieves the highest kind of love, it will be sufficient to neutralize the hate of millions. If we are to reach real peace in this world, and if we are to carry on a real war against war, we shall have to begin with the children. The future depends on what we do in the present. Now let us pause for a moment of silence. And now I would like to introduce Reverend Monroe Mabon, speaking to us on the topic conciliation versus confrontation. Reverend Mabon.
Good morning, everyone. 30 years ago, a man came on national and perhaps worldwide television and asked this question: can we all get along? Those who are probably under the age of 35 have no idea who Rodney King is. But it was an incident of many incidents that have occurred throughout the world of conflicts and disorder and treatments of individuals in a manner that brought about confrontation rather than conciliation. And it caused me to go from my clerical hat to my legal hat and come up with the caption: conciliation versus confrontation. And looking at those two things and what we can do in life. One thing in life you will definitely confront is conflict. We are an imperfect people. We live in an imperfect world. We have imperfect lives. So we are going to have conflicts. We have conflict in almost everything we do in every day of our lives. At work, marriage, children, friends, relatives, community, church, political, religious, social disorder. Everywhere you look and turn, there is some type of conflict. So the question becomes, how do we resolve conflict? as I examine this question, I realize in all of academia, all the schools that I attended, all the training that I went through, the various institutions and organizations that I may have worked for or been involved with, there was never a course on conflict resolution. It wasn't taught in elementary, junior high, high school. Went to the universities and colleges, and no one offered Conflict 101. And today we live in a world of conflict. I'm reminded of one particular popular song where they say, one of the lyrics is that the world is a ball of confusion. When you look around, conflicts everywhere we go. But in looking for an answer, I did what I normally do. I went to the Bible. And I looked at Jesus' first sermon, the Sermon on the Mount. And in the 5th chapter, Jesus tells us about the Beatitude. And he gives us 8 conditions to be blessed by God. Jesus tells us that blessed are those who are peacemakers. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God. Can you imagine to be a child of God? Now, I don't know how many of you are parents or grandparents or great-grandparents. I am a doting, believe me, grandparent. And we have a 5-year-old grandchild who, for me, when I picked her up, it was love at first sight. And she has me wrapped around her finger. Anything and everything she wants, she gets. She can do no wrong. And she comes over every weekend and spend the weekend with Nana and Papa. Last night, she came up and she says, Papa, I was in the man cave and I had a soda and I spilled it on your sofa. Oh, okay, baby, that's all right. No big deal. Come on, we'll go clean it up. You know, I didn't get mad. I didn't get upset. And the way God tells us about these attitudes that will allow us to have peace in our life and understand it. Let me tell you what a peacemaker is not. A peacemaker is not one who avoids a situation. A peacemaker who avoids a situation is really just running away from the problem. We look around the world today, and right now, there's conflict and war. In the war in Ukraine, I got up this morning and lo and behold, everyone was looking forward to the president's speech and his address in Poland. The news account this morning was talking about the fact that the president went off script and talked about regime being overturned and over again. Just words alone that has created a conflict. Mental and physical health dispute, namely whether or not there should be an overturning of Roe versus Wade, vaccination, wearing a mask, not wearing a mask, homeless situation, rich versus poor, men versus women, all types of conflict that exists in the world today. There is no end to the social and political or personal conflicts of the world that we find ourselves living in day to day. So how do we resolve, or how do we handle conflict? How do you make peace in a world, and most importantly, in our own personal lives? How do we go about resolving these conflicts? It does not mean that you have to go and make up and get together with your ex. It means that you bury the hatchet. You bring about peace. You make peace. There is no longer any resistance or animosity that goes on. We should resolve conflict matters, and the reason why resolving conflict should matter to you is that biblically it tells me that it blocks your fellowship with God. Conflict, when you're in conflict, it blocks your fellowship with God. And you say, how is that? 1 John 1:4-20 tells us, how can you love God whom you have not seen and hate people you see every day? Now we know here in Riverside, California, and throughout our country, I can't address the world, that we have homeless situations. And I can only imagine, because time and time again it has happened, if I were to go out and get in my vehicle and drive home, I'm going to drive past Riverside Unified School District building. I'm going to see people encamped around that building. People that I see, I don't even know them. But there are people who would have dispute and concern about whether there's blight, people sleeping on the street, and then that brings about conflict, emotions, whatever the case may be. But I can say that I love God and I've never seen him, but yet, not me personally, but there are people who are upset and say, why is this person doing there? And rather than looking for some type of conciliation, they want to confront it. Regardless of whether you believe it's right or wrong, they says, hey, no camping out on the street, so let's call the police and move them out. And the police says, we have limited resources. There's conflict there. So it blocks your relationship with God. It also blocks your prayers from being answered. Now, husbands, please don't get mad at me for this. And wives, I know you're going to say, aha, I told you so. 1 Peter 3:7. Husbands, considerate and be considerate of your wife and treat her with respect so that nothing hinder your prayers. Oh my God. You mean me being upset with Cynthia, my wife, my girlfriend, that's going to hinder my prayers? Well, that's what the Bible says. If we're disrespectful, we have animosity towards individuals, it interferes and blocks our prayers with God. Not only that, it blocks your happiness. How can you be happy when you're walking around content and contrite and concerned and dealing with consternation with other people? James 3:18 tells us those who are peacemakers will plant seeds of peace and reap a harvest of goodness. In other words, many of you have heard the cliche that I heard growing up time and time again. What you sow is what you reap. You sow goodness, you reap goodness. You sow evil, it'll come back on you. So the question becomes, how do you resolve conflicts? How do you make peace? First and foremost, you should make the first move. You should take the initiative. You should go forward. That's what the scripture is saying. If you have any concern or contempt with your brother, you go to him and try and resolve the matter yourself. First, go and seek to reconcile with the person. Second of all, James tells us in James 1st chapter, verse 5, if you want to know what God wants you to do, ask him and he will gladly guide you. So now you've taken the initiative to go and resolve the issue, as Matthew 5:23 and 24 tell you. And now James is telling us that if you don't know what to do, maybe you need to go into your secret closet and pray. Ask God for guidance, what you should do and how you should handle this problem. And then after you do that, begin. Oh my God. Ladies, here's another thing that we men aren't always really willing to do, and that's a conflict in itself, that statement. Begin with your own. Begin with my fault. When I was growing up, when things would arrive and there was some dispute, one person, or I would always say, check yourself. Look at yourself before you look at someone else. And the Bible tells us, when we look at the Bible tells us, how can you complain about the splinter in your neighbor's eye when you have a log in your eye? We want to blame someone else, but we have not considered our own fault. And remember that biblical situation where God comes to Adam and says, Adam, what's going on? What happened? What does Adam say? God, that woman you gave me, But wait a minute, when he was pointing a finger at Eve, how many fingers were pointing back at him? Oh, so we need to look at that. Listen. Listen for the hurt. What did you do? What did you say to hurt the other person? Maya Angelou says, we can forget what a person did. We can forget what they said, but you can never forget how someone make you feel. And the truth of the matter is, hurt people hurt people. All too often, I hear stories about, unfortunately, children who are abused to grow up to live abusive lives themselves, to abuse others, to engage in violence. Hurt people hurt people. Speak the truth tactfully and calmly. Don't be a jerk. If I can use some of the vernacular of the kids on the street, don't go and run up and get in somebody's grill or right in their face and challenge them and so forth, but be tactful. Biblical tells us in Ecclesiastes 4:15, speak the truth in love. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. Proverbs tells us that reckless words pierce like a sword, but the tongue of the wise brings a healing. We should also look to fix the problem and not to blame. One of the easiest things in the world today is to blame someone else. We look around today, and rather than looking for a solution, everyone is blaming. Congress is blaming the executive is blaming Congress, and then they're all blaming the courts and so forth and so on. But seek a solution to the problem, not the person. Focus in on the issue. Focus on reconciliation and not resolution. And there's a difference there. When we seek to reconcile, we're seeking to restore a relationship. We're seeking to bury the hatchet. We're seeking to bring about a peace, a calm, a fellowship in the nation, in our home. Let it be a contagion model that once we seek to resolve issues ourselves with our neighbors, then we can look to the world. I experienced an incident, not personally, but reading about an incident. We have one of those ring systems that a lot of people have, and we have a neighborhood connection. And I'm reading this post by one of the neighbors who says, some lady, apparently she was not recognizable, appeared on my porch and left a bag of dog poop on my porch. And as she was about to leave, she changed her mind, came back, picked it up and put it on my doorknob. Now, the story goes on, and the lady doesn't know whether or not her dog has pooped on the neighbor's yard, and the neighbor has decided to get back that way. But how easy would it have been, assuming that lady's dog did that, for the neighbor to come and knock on the door and says, hey, your dog, either come out with a pooper scooper or maybe control it or something. But there's that confrontation. And, I don't want to go into all the things that could happen, from, distributing waste to another person or things of that sort. But we live in a world of conflict rather than working towards healing, reconciliation. We'll never resolve the problem. I mean, that beautiful animal that was brought up here today, just seeing him was so emotional. But just like children, they have to be trained, and things sometimes happen in life that we cannot control. Resolution, resolving every single problem in the world, it's impossible. It's just no way of doing it. But reconciliation, bringing about a peace. What is our goal? We, who subscribe to be peacemakers, our goal is to bring peace to our daily life, and hopefully, by doing that, we can bring peace to the world, a world of peace. I find it heart-wrenching and, so disheartening to see the news accounts of what's going on in Ukraine right now, the refugees, the children, and what they're going through. You know, there's so much wisdom to be found in the Bible. And as I come to a close, I can only think of the words of the psalmist, the 133rd Psalm. And it's amazing, you know, when you put out 100%, you've given all that you have to give. And myself, now that I'm part of that generation that didn't trust anyone over 40, and now I'm way over 40, I think of peace and unity, 100 giving your all, and 33 being the number of years that Jesus walked upon this earth. And the psalmist, David said, a man after God's own heart who had a number of controversial and conflicts in his life. The psalmist in the 133 song says, behold, look around you, see how good and pleasant it is for brethren to come together in unity. How marvelous it is to have peace and solitude. In our moment of meditation today, how peaceful it was to block out all the concerns of the world and everything, and how beautiful it was to have a moment of silence and peace. But the psalmist goes on and tells you the results and what to expect. He says, behold how good and pleasant it is to dwell together in unity. It is like the precious ointment. All too often I hear my wife, my daughter, my granddaughter talking about, we're going to go to the spa, and we're going to sit back, and we're going to go through all of these relaxations and enjoy and treatment and massage and whatever they do. But can you imagine how peaceful and gentle it is? And the psalm goes on and make it so salacious. It says, it's like the dew. Now, when I was at the age of 12, I had a paper route. And I would get up early in the morning and I'd walk out, and I don't feel it as much as I did when I was a kid. I don't even see the stars in the sky like I did when I was a kid anymore. Global warming, you know, that's another conflict issue. But it was so nice to feel that dew and smell the coffee coming from Mrs. Y's coffee percolator across the street. Things don't happen anymore, the environment, etc., whatever, you don't have that sense. It was so refreshing. Like the oil, the anointing oil on Aaron's head that went down to the skirts of his garment, that covered his whole body. Peace could cover the whole world. And it says, the results. For God commanded blessings, even life forevermore. My peace I give to you. May peace be with you. Thank you.
Our closing hymn is Peace Like a River, number 100 from Singing the Living Tradition. Those in the sanctuary, please sit back, close your eyes, and listen quietly.
I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river in my soul.
the benediction. Now unto him that is able to keep you from falling and to present you faultless before the presence of his glory with exceeding joy. To the only wise God, our Savior, be glory and majesty, dominion and power, both now and forevermore. May the church say, amen. Go in peace. Before I forget my thanks to Adam for keeping me in tune and sending me the link. Although I haven't been able, and we haven't been physically, I have been monitoring Adam and Jeff. Very awesome. Was in message. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Mabon, for sharing your valuable time and insights with us this morning. It is sincerely appreciated, and we look forward to hearing from you again. If there are those of you who would like to stay for an additional 10 to 15 minutes for questions or to share some discussion or observations from the service, please remain in the sanctuary or online. For the rest of you, you are welcome to adjourn into the parish hall. Thank you for joining us.
It's up to you. It's up to you. I just want to, I'm Pat Colander, member of the church, and I just wanted to say that I think that topic is so important, especially in this church. We have such a history. We've been talking about having an alumni dinner, inviting everybody back who's been a member of the church in the past. And it's been, people have been really excited, happy about doing that. But then some people have said to me, oh, if he's coming, I'm not coming. And this is from 20 years ago. I'm like, you haven't gotten over it? Anyway, so I do think it's really important. And we don't teach conflict resolution. We don't teach peace. And I know myself, I flash, I get mad and say things that, you shouldn't be said. So anyway, I think that's really important, and I thank you for your thoughts.
In many ways, I am a virtual member of this church. Many people are not aware of history in the sense that this church was responsible for Allen Chapel, one of the oldest, or actually the oldest African-American church in Riverside, that you assisted Allen Chapel to come into being. A little known history that people are not aware of. I had an opportunity some time ago when they had to Traveling Museum to do a little research, and I found a little footnote on that, on how your church helped other churches and congregations in the community. And so from that, I've always considered this church has had a special place in my heart. And I think Adam, I call upon him as a witness. Anytime you call, I'm here. I feel I'm so grateful. And what you stand for, peace throughout the world. There's just conflict upon conflict. I don't know exactly what was said. They talked about the words, but I imagine the president went to Poland and gave a speech to try and unify the world. But in the end, I guess he said something that has now caused some political controversy, and they say he needs to take it back and so forth and so on. But please, I encourage you, continue on the mission that you want. Peace is so desperately needed. Thank you.
Oh, we have another comment.
My name is Ariana, and by the way, I'm visiting, but I'm hopefully going to be becoming a member soon. First of all, welcome and thank you for coming today, for your time and spreading your ministry. Okay, you've helped me with one thing. I went through a very crazy tragedy or traumatic tragedy last year with my daughter running away. Okay, and everything that I've gone through, I have not really straight out asked God what to do. I went the whole gambit, everything that a spirit can go through, but really, God, how do you want me to get through this? I haven't did that, so thank you. Okay, now, are you advocating for Jesus to come? For us that are Christians, are you advocating for Yeshua to come? So right here today, right this moment, we can't, okay. Because that's the only way you're going to get this peace that we're all talking about, people. I'm sorry. I mean, man's wretched, okay? And you don't even know how wretched you are until you go hungry, till you see the people you love go hungry, okay? People don't even know who they truly are. People don't even really know how strong they are until they got to be that strong. Okay, and I think that's why peace officers, when they have domestic disputes, man and wife, because a man can gain the strength of 10 men if he's driven there, if he puts it in his perspective into his heart that he needs to do that to survive. Because why? God, Yahweh gave us this ability to survive no matter what. That's why it is such a big deal for us too, for suicide and whatnot. My biggest thing about suicide, which I thought about it for the first time for a couple, not too long back, it's like, that'd be totally disrespecting my creator for even creating me in the first place. And I kind of think I chose this life anyhow, before I even came here, So again, peace is something that I'm sorry, our government doesn't want it. I did at one time, okay, but our government at this time doesn't want it. So where I'm at is, like Peter Tosh said, equality. Treat me how you want to be treated. You don't want me in your home taking your things, don't be in mine. You don't want me hurting your children, don't hurt mine. You know what I mean? And when it comes to peace, sometimes I hate that terminology. You got to crack a few eggs to make an omelet. Well, even how many people died in Scripture in the name of righteousness. Okay, peace isn't what I at least for myself, the path that I'm not on. It's more of we need to treat each other how we want to be treated. We know what love is. God's written it on our heart. Okay, and the ones that aren't expressing it, they're the weeds. They're the ones that I think the olive branch that God should they need to be cut off. All right. And us as Christians, or us as who we are as peacemakers, by the way, that's another thing. You helped me. You really helped me understand. You're right. To be this belt sheet that I like to consider myself, I have to be a peacemaker. And myself with the path that I'm on, you step on my shoe, there's a lot of times where I have to stand up, okay? Because I just become a road bump for a lot of people, and that's okay, because this is the path that God has given me the heart to be on, because he's never told me anything other than stop feeling weak about something. God can only use a strong heart. Okay.
Okay. So
I'm so sorry.
okay.
I did not mean to go on, but he just says so much.
Thank you for sharing that with us, sir.
It's amazing. Now, you brought up some very interesting and valuable points. First and foremost, people, regardless of the title position, if someone asks me, how should I just call it? Just something you said very important. Let me share this with you. People, regardless of the title, minister, reverend doctor, whatever the case may be, I tell folks that I'm not about religion, I'm about relationship. And
you are absolutely correct. In this world of conflict, people have taken things, they've taken the Bible, they've taken work, and they've turned it around for their own personal use. That's religion. You can do things, you could be a health fanatic, and you can do it religiously. It's a process, but relationships. You know, the basic core thing that we teach our children, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. Simple. That's my theology right there. You know, I don't have a bunch of treatises. I've not written a guide to religion or anything of that sort. Just basic relationship. How do you want to be treated? Treat people the same way that you want to be treated. And another thing, going to the Lord and asking him. I am now almost a 5-year cancer survivor. I have another examination to take, and the doctor says, you know, if you come up again with this, we're going to write you off. We're not going to see you anymore. We're going to give you a big cure. But when I first got that diagnosis, I said, oh my God, I'm not going to see my first grandbaby go to kindergarten or school or anything else. And I laid on the sofa for 2 days and had a pity party. And then I realized, I said, you know, stop and think about what God, where he has brought you. And I did that. I spent some time with him. Stop and think of the things you've been blessed with. You have a roof over your head. You have food in the refrigerator. Matter of fact, I have to curb on the number of bananas that I buy because I don't eat them all, and I find myself throwing away bananas because they're overripe. So you're absolutely correct. It's about relationships, not really. We can't necessarily put everything on the government, on law enforcement, the courts, but we must begin with ourselves and become peacemakers and talk to God and ask for a solution. Thank you. Thank you for your words.
Adam, is there anybody? No. Oh, it's okay. No. We appreciate your thoughts. Okay, Bill, last one, and then we'll adjourn.
This is an expansion on what you had done in the service. That's mine. This is an expansion on what you were saying in service. We're not always well trained on how to quarrel or contend successfully. One of the things that I'd read about is with the rise of what we would call the alt-right or the new conservative movements, is that they make appeals to what is called the lizard brain. I used to do some classical debating in the days, and it was very, you know, this is a telling point, this is not a telling point. And think of it as like rapier fencing. You strove to hit points. With the alt-right folks, they would use a different idea. They'd say, he's not convinced. I'm not, you know, I may or may not get the judge. I want the crowd. I want the crowd to go home talking about me. So what they would do is they would, for example, you state a very fast, ferocious point that's got a whole lot of wrong points in it. The other guy blocks point by point by point by point. But by doing so, if your ears and your mind is engaged, you say, this man is just demolishing that argument. If you look at it in terms of emotion, he is parrying, covering up, and looking like a trapped animal. If we conduct our arguments constantly in a way that makes us look either overly aggressive, then all of a sudden we're using that to fuel all of our interactions, and that's a lousy way to act. And if we're on the defensive side of things, then that can be, other people might consider that. I'd rather be the alpha dog in doing it that way. In your time at Quantico, I'm sure they gave you some cues there in conflict resolution as well. I don't know how a suit and a lawmaker would solve an argument when there's so much going on in terms of needful things that need to be discussed. Easy stupid is almost gone from the equation now. What we have is complex stupid, which is like a bunch of magnets hodgepodge together. One turn of the equation, and like magnets, it repels each other. So I do thank you for reminding me about how well a good argument or concession can be in making peace. I'm also, like I said, I do believe that even God also has a place for a weak heart. Am I going to break through a mountain with one stroke of my hand? No, I don't think so. But if I can sit there and get 2 superb hours, 6 average hours, and clock out, I kind of hope somebody else will do at least that well. I think God can use weakness just fine. And if I cannot break a mountain with my words, if I can heal the hearts of 10 other people who are in that same line of work, it's still a victory.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill, and also thank you for reminding me, taking me back to my childhood days where I would watch the pirate movies and I like to swatch westwards and then Benson and some of that terminology and Carrie White and all that other good stuff and what have you. But you know, you're absolutely correct. I recall as you were speaking of saying that one professor said to me, he said, you know, there are 3 ways in which to see a person. And that is how other folks see them, how they see themselves, and how they really are. And all too often, we don't know our demeanor, our character, our approach, the words that we use, the impact that they might have on someone else. I'll give you a classic example. You heard I was discharged from the United States Army as a certified disabled combat veteran. Well, one of the disabilities that I have is that I'm deaf in my right ear. Vanity, there's a conflict there. You know, you're a pastor, vanity is sin. Okay, the vanity keeps me from wearing a hearing aid. Okay, all right. So our daughter, friends are coming over, and I fix breakfast and run for them. You know, when I stopped running, I started cooking. And one day, one of my daughters, or my daughter, no, one of my daughter's friends says to her, "Gee whiz, why don't your father like me?" And she said, "What do you mean?" She said, "I go over and fix breakfast for us, and we turn around and I talk to him, and he doesn't say anything to me. He must not like me." And my daughter says to her, "No, it's not that he doesn't like you, he doesn't hear you, he's half deaf." But I never knew until they brought it to my attention, and now I tell them, I tell folks, I say, "Hey, if you're on the right side and I don't respond, it's probably because I didn't hear you." But you're correct, 100%, I agree with you.
All right. Okay, thank you for joining us today.